The scariest place I know was inside my own mind, when surfaced the unpleasant memories within the traumatic events that took place in my life when I was younger, and having it repeatedly occur. My mind had somehow trained my body to go numb and blinding my vision, taking my imagination elsewhere. And that place was below heaven and earth. I suppose my mind anticipated that hell was a better reality than to the reality that I was living in that present moment in time. And so when somebody tries to talk about their past without any expression or emotion, their story almost sounds allegorical. It's open to interpretation. In a way, it's like hearing or watching a dark, twisted fairy tale, one that doesn't have a happy ending. And so without using the basic methods of analysis, removing all labels such as perceptual realism, a traumatic despondency, and psychology, we've then limited human resources in researching the solution and diagnosis of one's behaviour. We are then forced to draw upon the archetypal myths of the collective human imagination, compared to the fairy tales that do have that happily ever after. And what you'll find is basically watching children that are living in nothing but shadows and being stripped of humanity. And so in their own mind, could they create their own fairy tale of a happy ending in order to escape the world that they're living in? And so when we compare the two, we're looking at opposites and reversals, reality versus fiction, good versus evil, innocence versus adulthood, feminine versus masculine, overworld versus underworld. And we present this in a form of philosophy. Philosophy in itself is an academic discipline in popular theories and subjects, and so by implementing other means of explanation, we are also arguing with the intelligibility of scientific beliefs. To put it simply, philosophy is just a fancy label for the power of our mind. Written by one of the famous philosophers in the history of mankind, known as Rumi, had written the following. It is said that out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls, and that the greatest characters are seared with scars. We are healed of grief only by experiencing it to the fullest. For me personally, if I hadn't gone through my own spiritual awakening, I don't think I would be able to understand and agree with Rumi's logic. It's our perception of life depends upon our own capacity to dominate and be aware of our own self. And so that passage written by Rumi, I used to think was debated by a Roman Stoic philosopher named Seneca, who wrote the following. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. Of how much time has already gone by, you take no heed. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day which you bestow on some personal thing is perhaps your last. And so the meaning of life serves no purpose other than to distract you from the answer, which is found in front of you when you live your life. They both come down to the one meaning. It is a path to illumination, of becoming the master of oneself. It is that inversion of the usual paradigm for self-actualization, because even as a young child being stripped of humanity, we can still grow up, learning to face our dark in order to see our light. It took me a really long time to understand that I was a victim of my own mind. But before I actually came to that realization, the emotion that I had trapped in order to make me feel that I wasn't worthy had already wired itself into my brain to make me believe that I can't. Every emotion that we feel has a trigger. After a while, I noticed a massive change in the way that I felt when I stopped caring about the judgments of how I was viewed by my friends, family, doctors, and even strangers, realizing that most of my tears were due to not wanting to be different from them. In the practices of spirituality also comes with the law of attraction, and those who meditate on Stoic teaches us how to control our emotion to adapt to any given circumstances. And we recognize that we also have the freedom to choose, and so we create our own future. So, for example, we forget to set our alarm off the night before, so we wake up late the very next day in order to go to work. Instead of feeling all calm and relaxed, we do the opposite by basically rushing and stressing. And so what manifests in a funny turn of events is that either your car breaks down, the bus is delayed, there's an accident that's causing traffic, and this all began from the moment we woke up late. In our own mind, in that rushed moment, we had already created the worst possible scenarios. And so again, in both the practices of spirituality and also Stoic, it's actually understanding the laws of human nature and also practicing negative visualization and self-denial to put ourselves in both negative and positive experiences as we are in that present moment and visualizing and briefly dwell on the potential of negativity. We mentally train ourselves to respond to that situation. And this also allows us to appreciate our actual existence in that present moment as well. Our human body and our mind is a natural part of life and nature, which is, again, something I learned the hard way in trying to fix it using unnatural means can lead to self-destructive behaviors. Whatever trigger activates our emotions, we need to understand that, first of all, we are not our emotions. Our human mind and our consciousness likes to be controlled by a little thing called our ego. And with our ego, it's hardly ever sitting in the present moment with us. It is always lingering in the past, or it's making decisions about the future. The way that we think in our mind and our ego, it's designed to keep us safe. And safe is not an emotion, but fear is. And being stuck in that uncertainty because we're locked in fear. And so in my own personal journey, in understanding where the philosopher Rumi was coming from and basically healing from our own grief, was when I used to be afraid of looking at myself in the mirror. It's so easy to say to ourselves that we are beautiful, but to believe it was another matter altogether, because our mind knows when we are lying to ourselves. And so in the reverse paradigm shift, going on that journey in order to heal was to take myself back to the day that I first felt myself as unworthy. And by doing so, I was able to basically stay in the present moment, feel the emotion of what I felt back then, allowing it to basically pass through my body, so that I can look at myself in the mirror and actually say to myself that I had scars, that I was angry, that I was hurt, but that doesn't define me. And so therefore could I live with my scars today and wear them with pride. And that was me living with my truth. It's accepting you for you. It is also embracing the fear, the uncertainty of the unknown. It is also accepting failure as part of human nature. That makes us realize that there is nobody but ourselves that is holding us back, and that the chains that we kept ourselves in was never locked. Knowing that we can't prevent certain circumstances that arise in our life, we can certainly control the way that we think and also our emotions. The consumption of fear and hatred and rage, the energy and the burden that it carries, has the ability to turn our thoughts, allowing it to possess us. And so medication or prescribed medication such as antidepressants did nothing but make my mind believe that I needed a fix in order to rid myself of the emotions that I was feeling, and learning the hard way that all that it did was suppress my emotion. And I can tell you from personal experience that we can certainly train our minds to shut off our humanity switch, and it's euphoric. But there's a difference in turning off your humanity switch and also becoming stoic. When someone turns off their humanity switch, it's also becoming emotionally unavailable and being guarded. Switching off the emotions that come with love. No more guilt, no more tears, no more care. You train yourself to not feel until you start to remember the pain as it submerges through and hits you in the heart. And so again, what we've done is basically pushed our emotions aside. Because the truth is, why would anybody want to feel when the outcome to feel is nothing but pain? And so it goes against the teachings of Stoic. The practice of Stoic is teaching us how to observe our emotions and observe our thoughts, and the way that we perceive things in life are different than the truth of those actual things. It's also teaching us to stand in the emotions of grief, trauma, pain, sadness, and allowing those emotions by embracing them to cultivate our strength, teaching us how to learn self-restraint, understanding also that life will always throw us challenges. And so when it happens, accepting that it will, we also stand in that courage to know that we have the strength to face what we've already conquered, and that every challenge is nothing but an obstacle that we can overcome. Part of me is still in the shadows, not yet engulfed by the light. And sometimes I think it would be so easy to just put myself back in that emotionless state of mind and turning off my humanity switch. And it's not easy to try and see the light within my darkness. But then I do get that little nagging voice inside of me somewhere that reminds me of everything that I'd already been through. The dark night of the soul, the depression, the self-hate and what it did. And realizing and believing that it never defeated me, because I'm still here, choosing to still face whatever it is that I have not yet embraced, knowing that I can. We all have inner demons that haunt us, and we all get addicted to something that temporarily takes us away from the pain. But of course, inevitably, what happens is that our temporary fix wears off, and what we try to run away from comes back to haunt us when we're alone, where we've got no place to hide. And here I'll quote Rumi: "It is within that beautiful silence where we learn the gift of healing." And also to quote Seneca: "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labour does the body." And so, with immense patience, we will learn to conquer our fears.